Lawbries and Gentlegrams, in today's episode of Lawbrie in Gentleland, it's late and way past my time for bed, so I just want to deliver you guys the news without delivering these rhymes in my head. So we just got another update in the legal battle between Drake and UMG, and Psych, the psychotic, spiraling, sensitive sad boy stunt double of the Sexy Red Ice Spice Collective, concocted a courthouse Karen document with UMG where they are trying to reach an amendment. Aubriana unfortunately could not settle with UMG, so now he's back filing letters to the judge, which we will review, just you and me. But hey, before we do, I just dropped a video talking about the balding bearded BBL buffoon's beef with his Canadian counterpart, the tiny tough talker Tory Lanez, as well as documenting Tory's whole career, all the ups and downs. So if you love me, please check that out. You guys show a lot of love to the Lawbrie and Kendrick videos, but we got a bunch of other artists to talk about. So for every Lawbrie Kendrick video I give you, we will talk about a separate artist issue. I got another one coming for you guys about Doechii. Maybe we'll review the Playboi Carti album. Akademiks, No Jumper, Vlad, and Chapel Ross have been on some crazy stuff lately, so we might touch on that. So don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on everything within the Rapaholics tribe, and let me know in the comments what other artists or music you guys want to hear me discuss. But in the meantime, let's review this Lawbrie lawsuit and see if it's a bust. So Lawbries and Gentlegrams, essentially what's going down right now is on April 2nd, UMG and the Marilyn Monroe v. Ho have a meeting with the judge to basically get this entire lawsuit started. But in the meantime, the judge has requested a short letter that's concocted by both Drake's lawyers and UMG's lawyers to essentially describe a couple different things. So let's clarify it all. Firstly, the April 2nd meeting that's about to happen is called a pre-trial conference, and it's basically like a check-in to see how the case is going and what needs to happen next. As of right now, UMG is requesting to dismiss the case. Meanwhile, Drake has requested some insane documents from UMG, including all of Kendrick Lamar's contracts with UMG, all of the discussions between Kendrick's team and UMG to promote Not Like Us, all of their discussions about licensing it for the Super Bowl performance, for the Grammy Awards, everything they did to promote the song, because obviously, as you guys know, Drake is basically accusing UMG of using bots and payola on radio to essentially artificially boost the numbers of Not Like Us. If I had to put it simply, basically Drake is suing because he lost a rap battle. But I'll give you guys the complicated version as well, because the Canadian courthouse Karen is definitely taking this seriously. Again, UMG is attempting to dismiss the case. Drake is saying, nah, not this time, you're following through. UMG wants to dismiss. Drake wants all of Kendrick's contracts. Essentially, the pre-trial conference on April 2nd will be a meeting where the judge and the lawyers discuss case logistics, potential settlements, and the readiness of the trial. So before this pre-trial conference, the judge wanted both UMG and Drake to get together, not exactly in the same way that the prom queen Petition Poppy gets together on his play dates with Sexy Red. No, UMG and Drake are most definitely still at odds, but they need to collaborate on this letter to basically provide a quick summary of what the case is about. You know, Drake saying UMG did him wrong and UMG saying they didn't. Why this case is in a New York federal court. Any requests they've already made to the judge, like UMG asking to throw the case out and Drake asking for all those insane documents from Kendrick Lamar. What info they've already shared with each other, like emails or different documents to prove their side. They've also got to tell the judge if they've tried to already settle the dispute, if they've talked about solving it without this big trial, maybe through something less formal, anything else they think the judge should know to keep things moving, and whether they want a jury to decide the case or just the judge. So let's go through this letter. It starts off saying, in accordance with this court's order on January 2nd, basically the judge ordering them to get together on January 2nd, Drake and UMG, through undersigned counsel, conferred via telephone conference on March 10th, 2025. The parties respectfully submit this joint letter. The parties agree that nothing in this letter constitutes a waiver of any kind, including as to any party's right to propound discovery not described in this report, or as to any objection to any discovery described in this report. The parties' joint position on issues where they were able to reach agreement and their respective positions where they were not are set forth below. Basically, in simple terms, both sides agree that this letter doesn't take away any of their rights. That means they could still ask for more evidence later on, even if it's not mentioned within this letter to the judge. So Lawbrie can ask for more of Kendrick's contracts, basically. And they can also still argue against any evidence the other side wants to use. So basically, in this letter, if Drake says he wants to see Kendrick's contracts, even though they concocted this letter together, UMG at a later date could be like, nah, we're not giving Kendrick's contracts away. So the letter will basically show like what both sides agree on and what they still disagree about. So first, they describe to the judge kind of what's going on, why this whole lawsuit's happening, and it's kind of funny. They say, beginning on May 4th, 2024, and continuing every day since, defendant, the self-proclaimed largest music company in the world and the company that has represented plaintiff Drake for over 10 years, has defamed Drake by publishing and promoting content that asserts Drake is a PDF file and S offender, aka the defamatory material, aka the Not Like Us music video, the song itself, etc. Drake has unequivocally denied these allegations publicly and privately to UMG, even though in a diss song against Kendrick, he was literally saying, talk about me liking young girls. Anyways, let's keep going on. And at all times, UMG knew the defamatory material was false, aka UMG knew Drake wasn't a PDF, even though Not Like Us was, according to Drake, implying that he is. UMG also knew the allegations in Not Like Us were a goldmine. Oh yes, they most definitely were. Drake is one of the biggest superstars in the world, and allegations that he was a PDF file, published and promoted by the very company meant to represent him, were all but guaranteed to go viral and produce massive profit for UMG. Notwithstanding its knowledge that the allegations are fabricated, to ensure the defamatory material went viral. On a side note, when I say defamatory material, I'm talking about Not Like Us, the music video, everything to do with Not Like Us. So, to ensure the defamatory material went viral, UMG waged an unrelenting and widespread campaign to publish the defamatory material as widely as possible, starting no later than May 2024. UMG leveraged traditional publicity strategies such as licensing, social media, and traditional news outlets. UMG also, on information and belief, spread the defamatory material through covert means, including removing copyright protections, purchasing fake streams, and engaging in other pay-for-play agreements. So, if you guys are curious what Drake is basically saying here, when he says UMG spread the defamatory material through covert means, including removing copyright protections, purchasing fake streams, and engaging in other pay-for-play agreements, the removing copyright protections is in reference to the fact that on the day or the week, I forget which one, that Not Like Us was released, UMG basically removed the copyright on that song for reaction channels. So channels like Screwface John, shout out to him, amazing channel. Kai Cenat, even myself, if I wanted to react to the song on the day of its release, but I didn't. I was way too busy blasting that in my car all day. But anyways, anyone who wanted to react to the song basically can do so on YouTube and keep all the profits of their reaction videos, which is unheard of in the reaction community. And it's a really revolutionary step towards, taking reaction channels more seriously, helping them out, helping them actually build a business through their content. Because usually, like, if you play a song in a YouTube video, you can't actually monetize that video, so you don't get to keep any of the profits. UMG would keep them. Drake is basically saying, UMG let all these reaction channels react to Not Like Us and keep all the profits, so because of that, more reaction channels started reacting to the song, and all the ones who did reacted positively because they were happy that they could profit off the song, and that's wrong. But simultaneously, he wants to try to convince the world that he's doing this to, fight for the smaller artists, the smaller creators who are, just trying to push away and, not have to fight this big machine. Meanwhile, the big machine was helping the little guys. Before Not Like Us, Kendrick was the underdog in this beef. So not only was lifting the copyright off Not Like Us for reaction channels helping reactors, the little guys react and still keep their profits, it was also helping Kendrick. This was a really revolutionary way to, merge the new generation of streamers and reactors with everything to do with music. But Drake is using that in this lawsuit to say that that was wrong. He's also saying they were purchasing fake streams, and the source that he used for this was an Akademiks live stream where he interviewed this anonymous guy who said that he was paid by Kendrick's manager to basically put 30 million streams of Not Like Us onto Spotify that were fake on the day of its release. But Akademiks literally came out after and said that was complete cap. That guy was full of cap. And then Drake also accuses UMG of engaging in other pay-for-play agreements, and that's likely in reference to the fact that he accused them and iHeartMedia, which is like a radio company, of engaging in payola, where basically they would take under-the-table payments to overplay Not Like Us on the radio in an illegal way. But what's strange about all of this is that Drake had Spotify and iHeartMedia roped into this whole case to begin with. He filed petitions against both of them, Spotify for the botted fake streams and iHeartMedia for the pay-for-play, payola, fake radio spins, essentially. But he actually settled with both of those entities, with Spotify and iHeartMedia. So I don't know how he could continue going forward with those allegations that the streams were fake or the radio spins were manufactured when he literally dropped his or settled his petitions with both those entities. If any lawyers are in the comments, definitely explain to us how he could settle with Spotify and iHeartMedia, but still try to claim that all this malpractice was happening on their platforms. But let's continue. He says, UMG's plan to spread Not Like Us succeeded. Not Like Us has been heard and seen by billions across the globe, many of whom believe that the allegations are true. And on a side note, let me know in the comments, do you guys think Drake is a PDF? Do you guys think Kendrick thinks Drake is a PDF? Do you think that Not Like Us was the thing that convinced you guys that Drake was a PDF? Because that's the whole basis of Drake's lawsuit, right? Is that the whole world thinks he's a PDF because UMG promoted Not Like Us on an insane global level. UMG's response essentially is that it's hyperbole, aka exaggeration, and that, no one around the world believes Drake is a PDF from the lyrics within Not Like Us. But let's continue. Online comments repeating and demonstrating belief in the allegations easily number in the hundreds of thousands. Basically, hundreds of thousands of people are saying online that Drake is a PDF. All over the world, people are calling for investigations of Lawbry by the police, the FBI, the CIA, comparing Lawbriana to convicted S-offenders like Jeffrey Epstein. This is crazy that they included this in this freaking letter to the judge because it was only Drake that compared himself to Epstein. On the Heart Part 6, he literally rapped, "This Epstein angle was the thing I expected." Anyways, he continues. All around the world, people are also threatening and in some instances committing violence against Lawbry. Then they include me in the document saying Rapaholics is even calling Lawbry the perpetual prom queen predator in his videos. I'm joking, they didn't mention me, but maybe I'll be mentioned on Lawbry's ops list next year. But let's continue. The spread and belief of these allegations, which constitute defamatory per se, have caused Drake reputational, financial, physical, and emotional harm. He was very, very emotionally hurt over Not Like Us. Within days of the initial publication of the defamatory material by UMG, which includes a doctored aerial picture of plaintiff's Toronto home, basically the Not Like Us album artwork was Drake's home with S-offender pins all around it. There was an armed attack at the same residence, aka Drake's residence, during which plaintiff's security guard was hit with a firearm and his life was nearly taken. Days after that, a different invader attempted to break into the Toronto property and another trespasser got into a physical altercation with one of plaintiff's security guards. These and many other harms suffered by Drake were a reasonably foreseeable consequence of UMG's intentional course of conduct, particularly in today's environment where conspiracy theories spread rapidly online and given recent violence caused by false allegations of crimes against children. I find that such a stupid argument. Basically, Drake is saying, because UMG released Not Like Us, people thought Drake was an S-offender, so they went up and, hit his house with a firearm. But it's like, that instance where they hit his house with a firearm happened about a day after Not Like Us was released, and Not Like Us only blew up on the levels that it did weeks after its release, and then blew up at even higher levels after the Super Bowl. There was no attacks on Drake's house except for the day after the song came out, and that was when Drake was still releasing diss tracks. He hadn't released the Heart Part 6 yet. So he's still very actively participating in this beef, but blaming this beef for the attacks on his home. Maybe that's why Drake only released the Heart Part 6 on his YouTube and not, through UMG on all streaming platforms. He can say, hey, you guys were releasing Not Like Us on Spotify. I only release my stuff independently throughout the beef. Now, any consequence I suffer throughout the beef, I could blame on you, but any consequence Kendrick suffers about the beef, he can't blame on anyone because I released all that stuff just independently on my social media. But let's keep going with all the allegations Drake makes in this new letter. But first, Lawbries and Gentlegrams, I want to tell you guys about something that, unlike Drake, a bunch of you guys have been telling me you've been Anita Max winning some free cash from playing mobile games. So I want to put all you guys on to something that almost seems too good to be true. All right, let me give you a little glimpse into my life. When I'm not making this content for you guys, I have a disgusting addiction to my phone. My daily screen time is higher than Drake on that album cover, higher than Snoop off the edibles. So if you guys suffer that same addiction as me, I want to put you onto something that's going to change your life. FreeCash.com is a program that partners with mobile games that are looking for more users to play their games, and they will literally pay you to play their games for free. All you got to do is sign up using the QR code you see on the screen or using the link in the description of this video. You make an account super easy. All you got to do is put in your email, create a password, verify your email, and then you're good to go. And they got a bunch of games. My favorite is the Monopoly Go because we're always on the go trying to make some money. Once you make an account, you just click the game you want to play, follow the directions that they give you. The directions Instructions are super easy. Usually you just gotta download the game and start playing. So it's about time you put that phone addiction to good use. Again, use the QR code you see on the screen or the link in my description. Create an account and you could start making more than $150 just to play a game on your phone. So Drake filed this lawsuit on January 15th, 2025 to hold UMG accountable for its decision to publish and promote lies about plaintiff in Not Like Us. The complaint asserts 3 causes of action: defamation, harassment in the second degree, and violation of Section 349 of the New York General Business Law. The complaint seeks a variety of forms of relief, including but not limited to compensatory and punitive damages. On a side note, I mean, everyone's wondering, what does Drake actually think he's going to gain from this lawsuit? What I think is he just signed his OVO label to a new distribution deal with the record label Sony. That's completely separate from UMG, right? And we know that UMG has been in business with Drake his whole career. We don't know the extent, but I'm assuming they own part of his back catalog. So I don't think Drake is actually looking for money from this lawsuit. I think he's looking for a way out of whatever contract is remaining with UMG so he can move all of his business, not just his OVO record label, onto Sony, and anything that UMG owns of Drake's music, he can essentially get back and again move on to Sony and independently possibly own the masters to his older music, because that's what's really making the profits, right? It's not his newer music, it's his music from like 2010 to 2018. If he can convince the judge that like UMG was not looking out for his best interests, they put him in a risk safety wise, financially wise by releasing Not Like Us while Drake was still signed to them, then it's possible that the judge will grant Drake, freedom from his contract and possibly, and again, I don't know how the law works, I don't know how these contracts work, but possibly ending whatever contract he has with them, granting him back, ownership to all of his previous music. We know just by this lawsuit alone that Kendrick has a similar contract with UMG where he's independent through PG Lang, but he distributes his music through UMG. So he owns the masters to his new music like GNX and any future releases he has, but all that music is initially distributed onto streaming platforms through UMG and their own resources. Maybe that's why Drake wants to take a look into Kendrick's contracts to see, what type of deal he's working with compared to what Drake's working with. And it looks like he's structuring a very similar deal with Sony where, he's distributing OVO's music through their label, similar to how PG Lang is distributing their music through UMG. And before we continue into this lawsuit, I saw someone defending Drake in an interesting way, which, possibly could be entertained. Basically, Drake's whole thing is that, UMG and Drake were supposed to renegotiate a second term of their contract, right? And Drake is claiming that UMG tried to devalue Drake's brand by, releasing Not Like Us and, illegally promoting it so that it blew up to huge proportions. Drake's reputation was ruined. So when he comes back around to renegotiate, his value is a lot less and he can ask a lot less from UMG. What I would say to that is, why would UMG want to do business with Drake in a compromised position? If his reputation is tarnished, if he doesn't have the ability to sell as many records as he did before the beef, that puts less money in UMG's pockets if Drake is their artist. But on the flip side, people argue that it's not Drake's new music that's valuable, right? Like we said before, it's his back catalog, all his music from 2009 to 2018 that's making UMG a lot of money. Larry Jackson, a big music executive, literally said that Drake's back catalog, aka his older music, makes more money than the 60s, 70s, and 80s music combined on streaming platforms. So it's making UMG a lot of money to own any sort of, have any sort of stake in Drake's older catalog. Plus, from what we could see, the beef actually hasn't affected Drake's sales of his older music. It's only affected the sales of his newer music. So maybe UMG is looking at it like, we want to keep Drake in limbo in this contract because we want to continue profiting off his old music. So if we devalue his brand, if we make his brand worth less through the release and promotion of Not Like Us, then we can still keep and profit off his back catalog while keeping him in this compromised position where, he can't renegotiate with us for a higher rate. He can't go run off to other labels asking for bigger amounts. We've basically kept him in this financial prison. But I guess we'll see, when this all plays out in court. But anyways, let's hear UMG's position on this whole thing. So basically what they're saying is Drake provoked, encouraged, and willingly participated in a high-profile rap battle with fellow rap artist, the short-statured assassin, Kung Fu Kenny Lamar. Over the course of approximately 2 months in the spring of 2024, Drake and Kendrick exchanged 9 increasingly vitriolic and incendiary diss tracks, sometimes responding within hours of each other. Kendrick is wildly seen to have won the rap battle. Drake and Kendrick are both represented by defendant record label UMG. Drake had no concerns using UMG's platform during the rap feud to level incendiary attacks against Kendrick, including most significantly that Kendrick engaged in abuse against his fiancée and that one of Kendrick's business partners and managers is the true father of Lamar's son. It's so funny to hear this in a lawsuit, but anyways, we'll continue going. Drake expressly goaded Lamar to quote-unquote talk about Drake liking young girls on Kendrick's next track. So yeah, tailor-made freestyle, which we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary. I'll do a review of that track when we get there. But yeah, basically there, Drake was, telling Kendrick to, on his next diss track, talk about Drake liking young girls. So, but now, having lost the rap battle, Drake claims that the penultimate song in the feud, Not Like Us, including the related music video and album image, is defamatory. It is not. As detailed in UMG's motion to dismiss this case, when assessed in context, as it must be, Not Like Us conveys non-actionable opinion and hyperbole, not an actual fact. Basically, Kendrick wasn't actually telling the truth on Not Like Us, and it's wildly known across all music listeners that Not Like Us is not actually saying Drake is a PDF. Drake also cannot show that anyone at UMG published Not Like Us with actual malice as required to sustain the defamation claim. Basically, Drake can't prove that UMG was like rubbing their hands together all greedy, like, yeah, let's, throw out this diss track so the whole world thinks that Drake is a PDF and his reputation is ruined. Drake claims that Not Like Us constitutes harassment in the second degree, a criminal claim under NY penal law, and that UMG violated New York general business law in promoting the recording are equally and entirely meritless. The harassment claim fails on multiple independent grounds, including that there is no private right of action, and even if there was, Drake cannot meet the statutory or constitutional requirements to establish the claim, particularly in light of Drake's own use of lyrics that are at least as violent as those that he now complains of in Not Like Us. Basically, Drake was releasing records that were as disgusting and violent as Not Like Us was on UMG's record label. And as to the 349 claim, Drake has conceded that the centerpiece of that claim, example, that UMG used quote-unquote bots to stream Not Like Us, is baseless because Drake has expressly agreed to withdraw the allegations. Drake's remaining allegations of quote-unquote payola are conclusory, speculative, and not cognizable, and are meritless in any event. And don't forget, Drake's legal team and UMG are writing this letter together, right? This is UMG's defense where they're basically saying that Drake admitted that the allegations of Kendrick using bots for Not Like Us were meritless. They weren't true. And we could see that, like I told you before. He got that source from an academic stream with an anonymous guy who claims that, Kendrick's manager paid for bots, and then Akademiks came out and said, that's complete cap. Drake acknowledged to UMG, at least according to UMG, that he's aware that that claim was cap. And UMG claims Drake already agreed to withdraw that allegation. So then they go into why they're filing it in New York, basically because the matter in controversy exceeds $75,000. So, this whole thing exceeds $75,000 and it's between citizens of different states. Drake is a citizen of Texas and UMG is a Delaware corporation with its principal place of business in California. So I'll spare you guys the rest of the details about, why it's being handled in New York and how UMG is operating in California and the Teenage Fever Mutant Ninja Turtle is a Texas resident. And so here's what's interesting, as I'm recording this, it's midnight at March 27th, 2025, and it says that Drake intends to notify the court on or before March 27, 2025, of his intention to file an amended complaint, which will be due April 16th, 2025. Essentially, an amended complaint basically means Drake would file a revised version of the lawsuit, of the, allegations he's making against UMG. And he would have to do that by April 16th, 2025. So if he wants to, take out his allegations that UMG was using bots or all the sources that he had, like that Akademiks live stream that was complete cap, he can do that up until April 16th. Then there's another part which I'm just going to simplify for you guys because there's a lot of legal jargon in here. Basically, on March 18th, so about 9 days ago, UMG asked the court to pause the evidence gathering process, which is called discovery, while the judge decides whether or not to throw the case out. Because again, UMG asked the judge to dismiss the case. We read, just right before why UMG thinks that the case is a bunch of BS. And about 2 weeks ago, they filed like a whole formal letter, which I broke down in a previous video. You guys can check that out on the page, where basically, they're telling the judge, toss this case out. So basically, On March 18th, after they gave that letter to the judge, UMG then asked the court to pause all the evidence gathering until the judge decides, whether or not to actually throw out the case or not. The judge still hasn't made that decision, but 2 days later, on March 20th, Drake's legal team filed a response saying that they disagree to dismiss the case and they want the discovery to continue. And that's when they asked for all of Kendrick's contracts, all the crazy things related to UMG's communication about releasing Not Like Us for the Super Bowl, the Grammys, etc. So now the court wants a quick update on what evidence between UMG and Drake has been already exchanged. And basically, after both sides had a legal meeting to plan the case, Drake's team sent UMG a request for a bunch of documents, the Kendrick documents, etc. But UMG didn't want to hand anything over yet because they've asked the judge again to pause the evidence process until the court decides whether or not to throw out the case. Basically, UMG is saying, we told the judge this is BS, so we're not handing you over a single document until the judge decides on their own whether or not this is actually BS. Then, like we said before, this letter is meant to, show the judge any discussions that Drake's team and UMG's team had about potentially settling the lawsuit before it actually goes to trial. And both of their position is that the parties agree that settlement discussions would not be productive at this time. So basically, they're both saying, we're taking this thing to trial. The freaky frontliner of the phony Montana Frontier is ready to fight his record label in a non-Canadian Karen court of law. So now we get into an interesting part. Discovery necessary for meaningful settlement negotiations. So basically, what type of evidence do they need to gather? What type of documents does Drizzy Drake need from UMG? So plaintiff's position, Drake's position. Drake believes that in order to engage in meaningful settlement negotiations, he needs discovery into the following: Kendrick Lamar's contract with UMG, documents and communications regarding the decision to publish Not Like Us, including documents and communications relating to UMG's recent promotional activities surrounding the Grammys and Super Bowl, documents and communications regarding the decision to continuing publishing and to promote Not Like Us, documents regarding UMG's knowledge of the allegations in Not Like Us, documents reflecting the revenues and profits UMG has generated and retained as a result of the song. And on a side note, at the end of last year, all the revenue for all the diss songs came out, and it was crazy. Like, all of Drake's songs were at the bottom of that list. Not Like Us had generated in 2024 alone, in like 6 months, $7 million. Like That generated over $4 million. Crazy. Anyways, documents and communications relating to any other works in the past 5 years that UMG has declined to approve or greenlight on the basis of UMG objections to lyrics or other content. So basically, any time in the last 5 years that UMG has stopped a song from releasing based off of lyrics within it, or if they objected to any lyrics within a song but still decided to release it. And now UMG is saying UMG does not believe that settlement discussions would be productive at this time and seeks to stay discovery, including the broad swaths of discovery identified by Drake above, pending disposition of its motion to dismiss. UMG therefore does not seek discovery at this time. So basically, again, UMG does not want to go into discovery mode until the judge decides whether this case would be dismissed, and they don't think that settling this case is productive until the judge decides whether or not they're going to dismiss the case based off UMG's request to dismiss the case. Now we get into prior settlement discussions, so any, discussions that UMG and Drake had to potentially settle. So the party's position is that in the months leading up to the filing of the complaint, various representatives of Drake and UMG discussed potentially mediating the dispute, but those discussions were unsuccessful. We know that throughout the months of June and July, throughout the summer, Drake had requested that UMG stop promoting Not Like Us, and they refused to, which, why would they stop, right? The song was already out. They were just going to stop promoting their artist's song because Drake didn't like it. So then they get into whether or not Drake and UMG decided that, they could handle this privately with a private mediator and just settle the dispute without the judge getting involved. And they said the parties have discussed the use of alternative dispute resolution mechanisms. The parties agree that alternative dispute resolution would not be appropriate at this time. So basically, F that. We're taking this to trial, baby. So basically, that's where we are now within this. They're going to be in front of a judge for a pre-trial conference on April 2nd where they'll, break down everything that's already been going on. Drake is requesting all these crazy Kendrick contracts from UMG. UMG is saying this lawsuit is BS. Let's just dismiss this right now. We don't want to give Drake anything until a judge decides whether or not this thing is going to get dismissed. So April 2nd, we'll have some more answers there. stay tuned because I'll keep you guys updated on all that. But in the meantime, let's touch on some other interesting things in the land of Lobry. So first on the charts, we got Kendrick breaking more of Drake's records, as Not Like Us is now the solo rap song to spend the most weeks inside the top 10 of Billboard, and it breaks the record that was previously held by both Juice WRLD's song Lucid Dreams and Drake's song God's Plan. Not Like Us is almost a year old, and it's still in the top 10 of the Billboard charts today. It spent 27 weeks in there, over half a year. Kendrick and SZA's song Luther also spends another week at number 1 on the Billboard charts, which I believe makes this Kendrick's longest running song on the number 1 spot on the Billboard charts of his entire career. And we'll have some interesting things to touch on in the land of Lobry and the short-statured assassin, because Kendrick and SZA are actually about to go on tour. I believe they start in April, right as this lawsuit kicks off. And that's going to be a stadium tour. Drake has never done a stadium tour in his life. If you guys don't know, stadiums have like a 60,000 person seating capacity, so these are going to be massive performances. If you guys have seen any of Kendrick's shows in the past, drop a comment letting us know, what they were like and how crazy they were. I saw him one year at a festival when he performed Mr. Morale, essentially. It was at a music festival. There was this like house artist playing at the exact same time on a separate stage than Kendrick. So all my lame Canadian friends wanted to go see that house artist instead of Kendrick, except for this one friend who was very drunk and didn't know what was going on. So I literally had to lie to him and pretend that everyone was going to be watching the Kendrick show to stop him from going with all my other friends to the house music set. That way I didn't have to watch Kendrick all by myself. And he'll let you know it was definitely worth staying for. That was a crazy performance. But enough about me. Let's continue on the Canadian Katy Perry. So if you guys didn't know, I did a video on this. You guys can check it out. Drake and Akademiks' Instagram messages had leaked from one of Big Akademiks' minions, the guy who runs the DJ Akademiks TV propaganda Twitter account. Basically, this guy, he goes by the name of Grand Wizard Chat Guy. He's Big Akademiks', I believe, employee, and I guess he has his own relationship with Drake. Throughout the beef, he was sending Drake a bunch of like different Kendrick-related things. He was sending Drake the fact that Kendrick's fiance's birthday was the same day as Mother's Day. They were laughing about how Drake was with these weird girls in Miami who were talking about how one of them was 14 dating a dude who was 24. Definitely some weird stuff in there. You guys can check out the whole video where I break that down. But people didn't know if these DMs were real or if they were fake. And Akademiks essentially confirmed that they were real, stating that Drake was at a club the other night and actually called Akademiks while he was at the club. And before we get into, the whole leaked messages thing, this is what Drake answered the phone to DJ Akademiks to say. Definitely some weird stuff here.
I forgot what night this was, but I don't know how he was feeling. Pause. Extra pause. This was, I can't remember when this was. Drake called me this night. This was FaceTime me, drunk as a motherfucker. I even told him, I said, bro, you are frost. And first thing the boy says to me, he says, who's your goat, nigga?
Who's your goat? This is how the defamation drizzler talks to his Big Akademiks minion. He doesn't say, hey, how are you, man? Like, thank you for all the, great publicity you've given me over the last few months. He goes, nah, who's your goat? Crazy way to start a conversation. But anyways, Drake was checking in with Akademiks to make sure that Akademiks' minion, Grand Chat Guy, got his Instagram account back, because the account was obviously hacked, and that's why the DMs had leaked. So Drake was checking in with Akademiks to make sure the guy got the account back.
And really, I'll tell you why he called me. He called me because my man Grand Wizard Chat page got hacked. And yes, the boy got it back. I was trying to get it back, but it's an OVO thing, man, So Drake got it back for us, and Drake hit me, and, we made sure the page got given back to Grand. But yeah, Drake calls me from the club. I promise you. He's in Houston in the club. I was trying to get it back. Everybody within, our ecosystem was trying to get it back. Grand is one of our top lieutenants. And Drake actually got it back.
So as you can see, Akademiks essentially confirms here that those messages between Drake and the chat guy were real. But this is even worse here. Big Akademiks continues going on, saying that he talked to some of his rapper friends within the industry, and they all said that Kendrick killed hip-hop.
Bro, I talked to a few rappers, and obviously they're not woke rappers, they're not lyrical rappers. A bunch of them feel like Kendrick killed hip-hop, bro. I feel like, it's not even I feel. This is what they told me. Bro, he made hip-hop so lame where it's like, is just over-analyzing shit. Like, this is about to be like battle rap again. Like the whole genre is battle rap.
So this is how he describes these guys, as non-woke rappers. And he feels like, Kendrick made it standard that everyone has to focus on battle raps. And obviously this is bad for Akademiks, right? Because Akademiks does not thrive on analyzing lyrics, doing breakdowns. That's not what his audience goes to him for. They go to him for the war in Chirac and all this BS, violence perpetuating it and essentially, making money off the plight and the violence that goes on within these communities that a lot of these rappers were raised in. If there's no violence, if there's no RICO cases, what does Akademiks have to talk about? Where can he, make his money? If it's Kendrick running rap, if the standard is, you want to be talked about, you got to drop something that's lyrically engaging, Akademiks does not benefit from that because people aren't going to tune into him to hear the lyric breakdowns, to hear him, assessing the music. He needs the NBA Youngboys, the Lil Durks. He needs them on, that quote unquote demon time because he thrives off that. That's what his form of media is, reporting on all that BS. And it's crazy to think that he has the audacity to say hip hop is dead. The people who are telling him this, and I've seen people say, oh, it's for sure Drake telling Akademiks that Kendrick killed hip hop. I don't even think it's Drake. I think it's these, lower tier, either mumble rappers or just as Akademiks puts it, these street rappers who are not used to this type of penmanship being at the top of the charts, right? Because for a long time, it was the Lil Babies, the Lil Durks. That was what the Billboard charts were pushing. But now, in the last year, you've seen Tyler, the Creator, come out with, his most personal, his most introspective album, and that hit the top of the charts, breaking sales records. You're seeing Doechii, who, has had a very slow rise up to the top, but now has top 10 hits, talking about, anxiety, doing all these different flows on one song, switching from singing to rapping. You're even seeing, more boundary pushing trap artists like Carti or Future have success with their respective albums. It's just not, the street stuff. That's not as prevalent today in hip hop as it was 2-3 years ago. And I get what Akademiks means, right? Kendrick and Drake have controlled the narrative within the media for a long time right now, right? Even for me, if I talk about some random rapper, it's going to get a lot less views than when I tell you guys about new updates related to Drake or Kendrick. And Kendrick's moves are the most interesting out of any rapper within hip hop right now, right? Doing the Super Bowl, giving us an album like GNX. When was the last time we actually sat down and dissected a full album front to back before a GNX or before Doechii's Alligator Bites Never Heal? It hasn't been like that for a long time within hip hop, especially on a mainstream level, on the Billboard charts. GNX has had, I believe, at least 2 or 3 number one hits on the Billboard charts from that album alone. And that's a big threat to, the lower tier rappers, the A Boogies with the hoodies, the Roddy Ricches, the, street rappers, as Akademiks puts it, or the non-woke rappers.
And I ain't gonna lie, most of the niggas who told me that, some of them are street niggas and some of them just make regular music. They feel like it's harder to get attention doing what they did because Kendrick just turned this shit into a Me Too movement. You feel what I'm saying?
They can't get their album released because they can't generate enough buzz because Kendrick has all the buzz right now. Real rap has the buzz. And again, that is poison for Akademiks' brand. If the casual hip hop fan shifts their attention from street violence onto actual lyricism, rap battles, song breakdowns, whatever the case may be, conceptual albums, that hurts Akademiks' brand because, again, he can't be the voice of reason for that. He can't be the number one guy in hip-hop media if hip-hop is back to being focused on lyricism. And that's why you're seeing this emergence of these new, amazing media personalities on YouTube, the Curtis Kings, the Company Mans, the Big Kishes. Shout out to Big Kish. Let's get it. There's a whole new wave of media personalities who focus on the positives, who focus on the empowerment Kendrick is bringing to not only hip-hop, but to his community. And the shift is turning not just within the music, but also within the media space too. I might do a whole video on that because a lot of these guys have weird cases going on, right? Akademiks, he got banned from Twitch after he was, saying these crazy things to that Nor kid. You have Adam 22, his whole team at No Jumper got caught up in some RICO case. I haven't even, dug into that. I don't really care to report to you guys about that. It's not really my place anyways. But it's you're not going to them. You're not going to a Vlad TV or a Traplo Ross for a lyric breakdown. You're going to them to hear about the BS, the toxicity within, it's not even within hip hop, but it's, within the neighborhoods that a lot of these rappers have grown up in, right? Like Traplo Ross doing documentaries on the violence within O-Block or whatever the case is. He can't survive, or No Jumper can't survive if fans start solely caring about the actual music. And then the same thing with the rappers, right? If people go back to expecting projects like Alligator Bites Never Heal or Chromacopia or GNX or even a We Don't Trust You, it's a lot of these rappers can't compete on that level. So they're going to have a very hard time putting out projects. And think about before 2024, when the last time was that we actually valued a full-fledged album. You could argue on a mainstream level, right? Not just, in the underground. You could argue maybe Travis Scott's Utopia in 2023. Maybe, Tyler, the Creator's last couple of projects. Maybe even For All the Dogs by Drake. Or Vultures One by Kanye. I mean, these are the last, full-fledged albums that I remember there being an actual moment for, actual momentum, actual hype around, right? Kendrick took that to a whole other level in 2024 with GNX, with all the moments he was creating, that it set a new standard, a new precedent that now rappers feel like there's a lot to live up to if they want to generate even a fraction of the buzz as Kendrick did. I mean, look at Playboi Carti, right? Like, he had to wait 5 years for this album to drop, experiment with all these different sounds, have all these massive A-list features on this project, concoct a 30-song track list just to create a big enough moment to where it felt like for a second within music, all eyeballs were not solely on Drake and Kendrick. I'm telling you, man, there's a shift happening, and the focal point is real authentic storytelling, real authentic music, real bars, real passion. This shift is happening within media too, and a lot of these guys are going to feel threatened because they simply can't keep up. But of course, Big Mac and Akademiks wants to chalk it up to, Kendrick turning hip-hop into this Me Too movement. Even though, can you name me one example of Kendrick on GNX or, at his pop-out concert or throughout the battle or on the Super Bowl stage of him even like actively or aggressively protesting against anything? Like, compare this to like Mr. Morale or to Pimp a Butterfly. This is like his most lighthearted project, his most fun project, right? It's full of straight bangers. Of course, there's many strong conceptual songs: Gloria, Man at the Garden, The Heart Part 6, Reincarnated, whatever. Again, amazing project. Just to glaze Kendrick a bit more. But nah, seriously, like, he's not turning this into some sort of Me Too movement or whatever you want to label it as. He's turning the focus back onto putting effort into your craft. Like, he's collaborating with Playboi Carti, which is the antithesis of lyricism. But what Playboi Carti embodies is left field artistic expression. Like, you do really have to sit with Carti's album to really understand it and appreciate it. And I think that's what good music is about, right? Like, it can't just be digested on a superficial level. And maybe he is talking about Drake, because that's what Drake's music is, right? Like, you hear it one time. Like, when I heard that new Drake album, I knew what the hits were going to be. I knew it would be the Nokias and the Die Tryings right off the bat. It's simple music. Some of it's good, but it's very simple, right? So an artist like that is going to feel very threatened when you see Luther at the top of the Billboard charts for 5 weeks, 6 weeks in a row. He's going to feel very threatened when, everyone's doing these breakdown pieces on Not Like Us and Meet the Grams and Euphoria. Because when he, had the crown in the palm of his hands, when he had at least the mainstream in the palm of his hands, he kept, as Kendrick put it, the crowd pacified. You're listening to formulaic, simple, generic pop hits, and they'd shoot up to the top of the Billboard charts, but there was no real message behind them. And for Akademiks to conflate, simple messaging within the music as some sort of woke Me Too type of thing, it's really just downplaying in a calculated way, because, it negatively affects him if that type of music is what's dominating the charts. But yeah, it downplays the shift that's happening from the audience. The audience is awake right now. We want something better than a simple For All the Duds. I mean, for all the dogs. Some sexy, sleepy lullaby love songs are not gonna work. Labri, Phony Montana, La Brianna, Marilyn Monroe VO, Canadian culturally cosplaying Katy Perry, spiraling sad boy, sexy red stunt double. The jig is up. Real music is back, baby. So please go check out that new documentary I did on Tory Lanez, because we got to start talking about some new artists. And drop your favorite Labri nickname in the comments, and I will catch you guys in the next one.